Well, you knew I was going to do it eventually, but I have a policy of not reviewing films that I have seen until I've seen them at least twice. I saw Infinity War last night again, so I can now review it, and here it is. So we'll start straight with the visuals. I'm not going to bother explaining the plot because you've probably seen this already, or at least you'll be aware of what the plot is. So the visuals for this film, I feel like, is an excellent mix of both faster shooting and editing styles and slower paced shooting and editing styles. The camera work is a lot more steady. The choice of shots is very varied and is used to execute the emotional beats of each scene perfectly well. I think it's a great example of how the Russos have evolved over the years. If The Winter Soldier established their style and Civil War refined that style a bit further, this is the final product for the Russos. If they kept this filmmaking style for the rest of their careers, nobody would be disappointed. It really is the final evolution of their style, and I think it's a great piece of visual filmmaking. It's well paced, it's well edited. I didn't spot, there's a couple of moments of dodgy CGI, but it really is only 2 moments, and that's when Bruce Banner is sat in the Hulkbuster suit towards the end of the film and you can see his face. It's the exact same effect as when Jeff Bridges is poking off his suit in Iron Man 1. It just doesn't composite very well and it stands out. But other than that, the CGI is top-notch throughout the entire of this film. It's hugely entertaining and I really can't praise the CGI enough. The camera work in general is a bit more measured and purposeful as opposed to the eclectic and very visually kinetic style that they've gone for in the past. Overall, I'm going to give the visuals a 9 out of 10. The more I watch this film, the more convinced I become that Alan Silvestri has finally found a full score which follows, reflects and enhances the emotional beats of the film. In the past, I felt like he'd created a good theme for the Avengers, but hadn't really created a full score which suited the film as well as it should do, and I feel like this time he's actually nailed it. There's a couple of moments when I feel like the tone changes too quickly, but overall that's really my only gripe about the score for this film. Overall it's really good, so I'm going to award it 7.5. Due to the massive cast involved in this film, some actors really aren't given time to do much with their characters beyond show up and do a bit of fighting and the occasional one-word dialogue, the occasional one line of dialogue. So I can't really criticize the actors too much. The performances largely are the same as they were in all of the previous movies, but there's not really much chances for anybody to stand out. With the exception of Robert Downey Jr., who I think gives quite an emotional performance as Tony Stark in this, and it's probably one of his stronger ones, which is crazy considering he's given so many good performances as Tony Stark throughout 10 years of the MCU. This is probably his best one, or at least his most emotional one. In addition to that, I think that Josh Brolin as Thanos was a genius piece of casting, and he gives a great performance, which he's very commanding, he's very threatening, but at the same time he can come across as quite intellectual and quite relatable at times, which, you know, is rare for a villain, especially in the MCU. But I think the overall props has to go to Chris Hemsworth as Thor. He's given quite a lot of work to do in this film, and he's given both comedic and emotional moments to deal with and executes them perfectly well. I think what he's done is he's managed to take the original, more dramatic Thor character and the Thor character from Ragnarok, which are worlds apart really, and manages to bring them both closer together and meld them into one complete character now. And I think this is probably how we should play Thor from this point onwards, because it's a really good performance. And there's quite a few moments where he delivers emotional pieces of dialogue, and he does it really well. It's something that I don't think I've seen Chris Hemsworth do before. So full credit to him. Due to the fact that not everybody is given time to shine, I can't really award it a high grade for the performances, because there are some which I think they're a bit flat, and it's largely because they don't get enough time to make them something more. So I'm going to give it 7.5 overall. I think this film does try a bit too much. It was a very ambitious project to try and get, what is it, something like 64 different characters all in one movie and give them equal chance to shine was pretty much impossible. So with the with trying to cram all that stuff into the film, I think it does push its runtime a bit. On first viewing, it felt like it flew by like that. But on repeated viewings, it feels like it pushes its runtime a bit too much, and there probably could have been some more ruthless decisions in the editing room to cut the runtime down a bit and keep the pace going as fast as it should do. Saying that, I don't think that the storytelling suffers. The story is told pretty much at a good pace, it's entertaining, and comedy and drama are both used at the exact right times and in the exact right amounts, which I think is something that other films have got a bit wrong. As funny as Ragnarok is, I do think that they probably pushed it a bit too far with the comedy at times. In this, I feel like the comedy is a bit more well executed and well timed, and the same goes for the drama. Thanos is a brilliantly constructed villain who, upon first viewing, comes across as understandable and certainly quite magnetic in his performance. On repeated viewings, it doesn't quite hold up because his plan, spoiler alert here, of erasing half the universe to help the other half of the universe flourish in their life is a bit silly, really, when you consider that he has a gauntlet with a reality gem in it that can actually just change the universe and create an infinite amount of resources so that he doesn't need to exterminate half of them. So first time round, he comes across as quite understandable, given his somewhat fake altruistic goal. But when you really think about it, it doesn't hold water. Unless you consider that perhaps he is just a misguided villain who believes himself to be a hero, when actually he is just a murderous madman, which is exactly how he's represented in the comics. So, failing that, he is still one of the best villains in the MCU. There are few that can stand up to him, both in terms of his physical presence, his commanding attitude, and also his complexity as well. Perhaps maybe only Killmonger from Black Panther can say the same. Overall, I'm going to give the writing 7.5. I'm going to give this worth a watch. It is a hugely enjoyable film, but I think the tone, length, and subject matter mean that it won't appeal to everybody. I went to watch this with my girlfriend in my last viewing, and she didn't enjoy it anywhere near as much as previous films, and she enjoyed Thor Ragnarok far more. And I think that's because it's a bit more of a lighter tone for the film, whereas Infinity War is certainly a much more darker approach, both in terms of storytelling and characterization than previous films have done. So because of that, I don't think it will appeal to everyone, and I'm only going to give it worth a watch. But I should give the addendum that I absolutely love this film, and if it was just aimed at people like me, it would get an unmissable for sure. But in terms of general audiences, I think worth a watch is the more appropriate rating to give it. So that's it, that's the end of the interview. What are your thoughts on Infinity War? Did you enjoy it? Did you